Welcome to the House of Truth. Today as we continue our series on wisdom, we're going to talk about wise communication. And this kind of goes along. This kind of goes a little bit along with when we talked about the Mount of Wisdom a few weeks back. But this isn't focused as much on this is focused on communication beyond just the words you say, because there's more to communication than just saying the right than just saying the right word than just saying the right things. And we're so we're gonna look at what that is, because it's important we learn to say the right thing at the right time to the right people in the right circumstances in the right way. So we're gonna look and see what the Word of God says about that. And we're going to begin here in Proverbs 5, chapter 5, verses 12 through 14. And say, how I have hated instruction, my heart despised reproof. I have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined my ear to them that instructed me. I was almost in all evil in the midst of the congregation and assembly. First of all, this word evil here means trouble in this context. Sometimes the word in King James translated evil, it means trouble. He was in all kinds of trouble in the midst of the congregation and the assembly, which tells us something about him. We're talking about someone who goes to church, synagogue, something like that. Not someone, just totally ignorant. But what was the problem? He didn't listen. He had teachers, but why they told him was in one ear and out the other. He didn't obey them. He didn't incline his ear. He wasn't paying attention, wasn't listening. He didn't want to be told what to do and how to do it. And that's what brought this trouble upon him. So part of communication isn't just talking, but it's also listening. And we should be listening more than we talk. My grandma used to say to me, Danny, God gave you two ears and one mouth for a reason. And I have to remind myself of that sometimes. Proverbs 17:4. In Proverbs 17:4, we get some more about this, about the importance of listening to the right source. A wicked doer gives heed to false lips. A liar gives ear to a naughty tongue. Naughty meaning there's not mean in the sense of teasing or something, but in the sense of somebody's trying to tell them, trying to convince them to do something evil. Okay. So wickedness is going to listen to false lips, to lies, and that's what caused them to be wicked. So they got in this road because they rejected the instruction, and that brings all that trouble. And instead, they're listening to someone who's going to tell something that's not true. Because if you reject the truth about anything, all you get left to believe is a lie, and somebody will give you that lie. And that liar got that way by giving ear to a tongue that told them they could get away with whatever wicked thing they were doing. That the way to get what they wanted was through some sort of wicked thing or naughty thing. So they listened to the wrong people. They refused to listen to the right people and they listened to the wrong people instead. People who did not want to line up with God's word. Now let's continue on in Proverbs chapter 29, verse 9, and we see some more about someone who's done this. Now, a wise man contends with a foolish man, where he rage or laugh, there is no rest. Okay, so when you're talking to you want to listen to God's word, and people are godly, and you want to run away from you do not want to listen to people who are contradicting God's word and telling you things, and people are, and once you determine someone's a liar, don't listen to them. Because now, but the problem is those people like that I just described are foolish people. Now, if you can, if someone who's wise in the ways of God contends with them, that foolish man may get mad and rage, or he may laugh. But either way, there's no rest. He's just going to keep. He's going to keep trying. He's going to get in an argument with you, trying to prove himself right, which is endless because he's wrong, or she's wrong. He or she's wrong, trying to justify themselves when they're unjust. And it's an endless loop that will never. It's an endless loop, as we'd say in my software development. It will never. It just never. There's no end to it. There's no rest. So you need to be listening to their words, listening. Try to determine. You need to listen to the righteous men. Ignore and cutting out everyone that's evil out of your life. Just cut them out, and don't argue with them. Don't get a discussion with them because they do not want to learn. It's not a case of someone who's ignorant, who doesn't know any better. That word foolish there, perhaps the Hebrew word that better translated as scornful. Someone that someone who can't even learn the hard way. They're just gonna, they're gonna get mad. They're gonna mock you, but they're not gonna. But you're not gonna come to a satisfactory conclusion. You're not gonna help them a bit or yourself. All you can do is get yourself hurt. So don't do it. Now in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 7 through 8, we read about dealing with these people some more. He that reproves a scorner gets himself a shame. He rebukes a wicked man gets himself a blot. Reprove not a scorner lest he hate you. Rebuke a wise man and he will love you. Now this right here gives you a test. If you don't know someone very well, and you see that they're doing something contrary to God's word, to determine whether they're a scorner or they're wise. If you go reprove or rebuke them, and they're a scorner, you can tell by their reaction. They're going to hate you. They're going to mock you. That's what it means by gets himself shame. They may try to do something. They may try to do something to embarrass you. Accept. If that happens, you know that they're a scorner. You don't have anything to do with them, or they're wicked. And gets themselves a blot. Gets himself some sort of trouble. Like a black eye, maybe not literally, but figuratively. But if they hear what you have to say, if they're a wise person, they're going to love you because they know you're looking out for their long-term good. They may know they shouldn't have done. They should have been doing such and such. They may not know it, but maybe they do know it. They just need to get back on the right track, and they're going to love you because they know you're looking out for them to help put them on the right track. But if you already know if you've already proven them that they're a scorner, there's no reason to reprove them, to try to put them back on the right path, because they will not hear it. And remember, a scorner again is someone who cannot learn. Well, they're not ignorant or inexperienced. But they're beyond the fool. The fool has to learn the hard way. They won't even learn the hard way. When they're hard in their heart like that, there's no use you talking to them about anything. All they'll do is bring trouble to you, so don't. Now in Proverbs 17, chapter 9 through 10, we read this. He that covers a transgression seeks love, but he that repeats the matter separates very friends. A reproof enters more into a wise man than 100 stripes into a fool. Okay, so if you go talk to somebody, separate very friends, it means close friends, true friends. You separate true friends by just repeating a matter. If someone did something that's wrong, and you confront and you follow the instructions of Yeshua and go to them alone, and if they repent, that's supposed to be the end of it. And you don't repeat it to anyone else. But if you go around and keep talking about the people, you'll cause division between the best of friends. So just so so our goal should be to seek love. We won't we want to be looking out for their long term good. If we go to them and and they're like, "Wow, you're right. I shouldn't have done that, and I'm going to do better." If they do better, leave it alone. Don't don't tell anyone. You just got to keep it to yourself. And it's because see, if you tell the right person, they'll do them more good. You're reproving a wise man will do more good. I mean, again, this is like the idea of the scorner. The guy came learn the hard way, 100 stripes. That guy's been beaten 100 times and still can't learn. But someone that's wise, a word of the wise is sufficient, as the saying goes. All I got to do is reprove them. So again, you got to be careful, discern who you're talking to, what kind of person you're talking to. And remember, your goal is love, not to stir up trouble, not separate people. Because we all of us all have sinned and fell short of the glory of God. We don't want all of our stuff laid out for everyone, so we don't want to be laying out other people's stuff either unnecessarily. They may force our hand on it, but if we can cover it up, if we can talk to them, they can repent, and we can just keep it to ourselves. That's the best. That's the best way. And if they're wise, us talking to them by ourselves will be sufficient. In Proverbs 19:25, we read this: "Smite a scorner, and the simple will beware. Reprove on his understanding, and he will understand knowledge." So what you do with what you do with a scorner? Well, if you're in a position of authority, say maybe you're an employee and you got two employees, you punish that scorner. Why? The scorner ain't going to learn from it. Now, maybe you fire him and get him out of your company. But the hard truth is for people, sometimes they got someone in a position that they can get rid of them, but their business will die if they do. They can replace them, but they can't replace them immediately necessarily. Some people just have a hard to find talent, but you got to punish them somehow. And why? Because to make the simple, the uneducated, unexperienced aware, so they'll to make them cause to beware. They'll go, "Wow, I don't even want to go there." They won't even start down that path. That's what you do to a scorner. But if you got someone of understanding, all you got to do is reprove them. Tell them, "Hey, say they knew better. You knew better than that." Or maybe there's some sort of misunderstanding, and they'll understand knowledge. You can talk to them. Maybe there was just a misunderstanding, a lack, because no, between human beings, there's always chance for imperfect communication. And they just maybe didn't have the right understanding of what you want in the first place, or something like that. And they aren't trying to justify what they did. They're just saying, "Well, I understood it this way, and that's what I did." And you're clarifying to them, and they'll get it because they're not trying to defend what they did. They're just factually telling you, "That's what I understood, so that's what I understood you wanted." If it was wrong, they want to know how to do it right next time. So not only we got to be careful who we listen to, we got to take care. We got to discern between those who rejected listening to what's right from the Word of God, particularly from those who listen to people that are influenced to do wrong. And we got to discern if they're a scorner. We can't argue with them. If we're in a position to punish them, we may have to punish them. not for their sake, for other people's sake, because they will not learn even from 100 stripes. But if we discern they're a wise person, a godly person, we can just talk to them about what they need to do better, and they'll do better. Now we'll continue on Proverbs chapter 10, verses 6 through 7. We're going to look at another principle about communication here from Shlomo, King Solomon. Blessings are upon the head of the just, but violence covers the mouth of the wicked. The memory of the just is blessed, but the name of the wicked shall rot. Okay, notice the blessings on the head of, and this reminds me of the name of the wicked rotting, the blessed be on the head of the just. Reminds me of graveyards that you've gone to. There's been people in the past in America here. It's probably other places, maybe just be a southern thing or an Ozark thing, but these people are so wicked. When they died, their family did not want their name put on the tombstone. They didn't want them buried near the rest of the family. They're usually off in a corner in an unmarked grave. Their name to rot, to be forgotten. But you'll see someone that was greatly beneficial, and a great blessing to a community, and the community will set up a monument for them because their memory is blessed. And how those blessings will come upon the head of the just, the blessings from God particularly. But one way you can spot the wicked is their mouth. I mean, their words. They're always threatening violence to somebody. Violence covers their mouth. They're always threatening violence, threatening to beat people up, and you take that back, or I'm like, actually, someone say that to me, I'm like, or I'll kill you, whatever, huh? Or I'll kill you for saying that kind of thing, which really happened to the prophets. When someone threatens you with violence, particularly, and all you did was tell them, hey, what you're doing is wrong, it's going to hurt you, you need to stop doing it. When they do that, then you know that they're wicked, and you need to treat them the way we've been discussing. You treat wicked people. But you don't want violence coming out of your mouth, because that identifies you as the wicked. And it's going to cause your name to rot. Nobody's going to shed a tear when you're gone. Proverbs 24, 28 through 29. We read this. Be thou not a witness against your neighbor without cause, and deceive not with your lips. Do not say, I will do to him as he's done to me. I will render to the man according to his work. Okay, so this witness without cause and deceit. Notice deceit. It's talking about a false witness. Of course, if you see somebody do something wrong, you're to witness with them. I mean, you're to witness. If it's a court thing, and you saw them, and they call you, and you're to be a witness against them if they really did do something. You're not to be a false witness. In fact, Leviticus 5:1 basically says if you know someone's doing wrong and don't tell the authorities, you're a co-equal. You're equal in guilt with them. So you do have to tell. The wicked will tell you something like, "Don't be a tattletale." Why? Because they don't want the fact that what they did wicked is being known. They're just asking you to join them in keeping it quiet. Don't join them. But this is talking about witnessing against someone falsely here. And what's the motivation for it? Someone did you wrong, and you want to get even. So you're going to make up some sort of false witness against them to cause them trouble. Don't do it. This is what the wicked do. You need to be speaking words of truth. You need to be speaking the truth. You need to be telling the truth about telling the truth to all people at all times about all things. Doesn't mean you have to tell everything you know, though. You can keep things to yourself, but do not be lying against other people to get even. And here we read again about the mouth of the wicked that we're trying to avoid here in Proverbs 25:18. A man that bears false witness against his neighbor is a maul and a sword and a sharp arrow. Now, a maul, if you don't know, it's like a battle hammer. Where armor may where shield may block arrows. In armor may deflect a sword's blow. A maul will break that. A maul, this big hammer, can break that shield and crush the armor, so that the armor actually crushes in on the person and kills him. Or if it's strong enough, take the blow, just knock them back completely on their back. Then maybe you can, smash their legs or whatever the case is. So this maul, so the point is, this is destruction. A man that bears false witness is like someone that's a weapon of destruction. We're not to bear false witness. We're not to threaten people with violence. We're not to threaten people with violence. And of course, I'm not talking about a situation like a president saying to another ruler, "Hey, you invade that country. If you don't leave, I'm sending over the troops." But we're talking about violence just to get your way and to threaten people and because you don't want to hear the truth about something, or just to manipulate people. Violence in a wicked way. I mean, David told Goliath, bragged about the violence he's going to do to David, and then David told him all that was going to come back on Goliath. Well, he was speaking violence, but he wasn't doing it. He wasn't doing it from manipulative, false narrative. Because it's not just what you say, but your motivation for what you say as well. We should be seeking love, which is going to keep us from doing all this malicious damage with our voice of threatening violence and then using our words in a way to bring destruction to other people. Now, we continue on Proverbs 15:23. We'll read the following. As say chapter 15, verse 23. A man has joy by the answer of his mouth, and a word spoken in due season, how good is it? So we're talking about a man has joy by the answer of his mouth. I mean, we're talking about good news. But notice that good news has to be spoken in due season for it to be good. Not every time is a good time to say something, even if it's the best news that there is. You have to use some discernment about when to speak. It's not just what you say, but sometimes it's or how you said it. It's sometimes it's when you said it. And you need to be led by the Spirit of God on this. And you need to be, as my grandma would you say to me, think before you speak. And just stop before you ever say anything to someone. Spend 30 seconds or so, 10 to 30 seconds, whatever it takes, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, to assess the situation that's going on before you ever say anything. And sometimes you just need to be looking for the right opportunity to speak, to bring this up. So not every time is the right time. There's a right time to do everything, as we saw for everything. There's a time for everything. So you need to be looking for that right time and listening to the Holy Spirit for when that right time is. Now in Proverbs 25:20, we're looking at an example of a wrong time. Don't be doing this, because this is definitely the wrong time. Again, Proverbs chapter 25, verse 20. He that takes away a garment in cold weather And as vinegar upon nitre, so is it that sings songs to a heavy heart. Now, nitre, if you don't know, is like baking soda. Why don't you pour baking? If you pour vinegar on baking soda, if you ever made on baking soda volcanoes or something, it just erupts and it's fizzled. And it just, so figuratively, it's talking about when you take away someone's coat in cold weather, you're going to cause them a lot of discomfort and trouble. And what are you going to do? Singing songs. Well, this means happy songs to someone of a heavy heart. Somebody's just got some terrible bad news. Let's say they were close to their mother and they just learned their mother died. And man, their heart is heavy. Not the time to be singing them happy songs. Not the time for you to be rejoicing. That's just irritating to them. And they just think you're cold. You're cold to them. To them, you seem like you're just a cold person. So what you need to do, you need to weep with those that weep and rejoice with those rejoice. So they're weeping, so you need to weep with them. The shortest book verse in the entire Bible is Jesus wept. And you read it, it's in the context of Lazarus. Jesus waited 4 days for him to die on purpose. Jesus knew he's going to raise him from the dead. So why is he weeping? Because they're weeping. He's weeping with them. Then he raises Lazarus up, and their mourning is turned into joy. But he didn't start off with that. He didn't lead with that. When he arrived there, he wept with them. He mourned with those that were mourning. So the right time to bring up good news. I know what may go through your mind. This will cheer them up. But if their heart's real heavy, there's nothing that's going to cheer them up at that moment. Best thing you can do is cry with them. Help them get it out of their system. And when they get that out of their system, they've calmed down, then's the time to deliver the good news, to sing those songs of joy. Now in Proverbs 27:14, we read the following. Chapter 27, verse 14, as to say, he that blesses his friend with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, it should be counted him for a curse. Okay, blessing his friend he's got a good thing to tell his friend. It's going to blessing. Man, it's a blessing. It is great news. What's the problem? He's doing it with a loud voice early in the morning is the right problem. The problem, I mean, you ever been asleep? Have you ever been asleep and maybe you left your phone near your bed or something, and maybe someone calls you, and maybe they're all excited, and they really do have great news, but they just woke you out of the middle of your REM cycle. You were deeply in dream state, and you have trouble going back to sleep, and your whole the whole day can be just didn't go right after that, and you're like, you're gonna more remember the fact that they messed up your sleep than whatever they told you, generally speaking. So when you got good news, you can't just blurt it out anytime. That's what we're talking about here. You've got to pick the right time, and the right time is definitely time that great good news that makes people rejoice is definitely not when they're in mourning, and not when they need to be sleeping. Now, in this context, of course, the assumption is the guy sleeps, but the guy works at night, he's asleep during the day, the same principle applies. You've got to wait to the right time, and you just got to hold it in. You have to contain yourself and use some self-control, and the Holy Spirit will help you do that. Because it's not just about saying the right thing in the right way to the right people, but it's also about saying it at the right time. And those are two definitely wrong times. Now we continue on. Now we look at our next principle here in Proverbs 20, chapter 16, verses 14 through 15. We read the following: the wrath of a king is as messengers of death, but a wise man will pacify it. In the light of a king's countenance is life, and his favor is as a cloud of the latter rain. Now, I'll explain that last part first. In Israel, if things are working correctly on the agricultural counter, I had a lesson a long while back with illustrations where I drew charts and stuff, where I drew things people could see, explaining the agricultural year and the regular year in biblical timekeeping in general. That's why it's called biblical timekeeping. And what you have is after summer ends, the rains start. They start off gently, and you have two sets of rains, because in the middle you have snow. And that first rain is at the time of planting, and it gets the soil soft and makes it easy to work with and cause the seed to germinate. Then you have a period between there where a lot of your precipitation is going to be ice or snow. And then the ice and snow, the time of snow is ended, and it's back to rain. That's the latter rain. And we're talking about barley and wheat. That's coming at the time. It's coming right at the right time for their harvesting, so that what it causes them to do, the grain to do, is to swell up, become large. And when you're a grain farmer, you're paid by the pound, by the bushel, but that makes more volume. Or sometimes by the pound, you got more weight. If you got more, if your thing is, if your grains absorbed moisture, it is swelling up. Okay, that's prosperity. That latter rain. Okay. So if you see wrath as messengers of death, was literal in Solomon's day. King David had a guy who occasionally someone needed to be done away with. He'd tell the court assassin, basically, he'd tell this guy, go fall on so and so, and he'd go. And when he said that, that guy would go find that guy. King James would say he fell on him, and the guy was dead. He killed him. The king, why would David do that? He was mad at the guy for doing something wrong. His wrath literally caused a messenger of death to go out. Well, king's wrath today, or leaders, or rulers, is like that. I mean, in a corporate situation, he can cause you to get fired, or maybe out of trouble, or maybe maybe even pursue you beyond that. Not just get you fired, but if depending on what you did, if you did something really wrong, get you arrested, or maybe get sued in court. So what do you do if the king's wrath's against you? You pacify it. And we'll go look a little bit more about how to pacify it in the moment here. But what you want to do is calm him down. You want to get him out of that place of anger. And if you can't get him to a place where his face lights up, perhaps you did nothing wrong. You want him to see that and look on you favorably, because his favor can bring you prosperity. A moment of favor is worth a lifetime of labor from someone like that. Joseph could have never made himself prime minister of Egypt, but Pharaoh did it in a moment because he had favor with Pharaoh, because Pharaoh could see he was wise. He was a wise man. Now, so how do you go about pacifying? We're going to look at that. Chapter 25, start in Proverbs 25, chapter 25, verse 15. By long forbearing is a prince persuaded, and a soft tongue breaks the bone. Okay, when it says breaks the bone, I mean, a bone's hard, right? It's the ideal. So he's going to break that hard spot with what? A soft tongue. A soft answer, remember, turns away wrath. Lower your voice, lower your tone, say your words slowly Not like they're stupid, just but not make them look like you're saying it like you're saying it slow because you think they're stupid, but slowly and gently. And this is about how you say something. And the long forbearing about you want to get the guy monologuing. You want to say you might want to say something kind of open ended. Well, why are you so angry about this? And then let him vent. Let you just sit there and listen however long he needs. If that guy rambles on for 3 hours, you let him ramble on for 3 hours. And you sit and listen and you listen carefully and you show interest. And you speak softly to him. Again, lower your voice, lower your tone. Right? If you just think he perceives as angry, it's going to feed his anger. But if you just think if you be you have a conciliatory tone to your voice, he's going to become the natural response is to become conciliatory also. You're going to break the bone, break that hard thing, that seemed to be that hardness is going to get broken by you being soft in your words, in your tone, in your volume, and listening, letting the guy vent however long it takes. And lastly, when it comes to dealing with a king, a ruler, someone with authority over your life, you need to be doing this. Ecclesiastes 10:20. Curse not the king, no, not in your thought. Curse not the rich in your bedchamber. For a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which has wings shall tell the matter. You know, the king may not be the brightest, kind of like King Ahasuerus. But don't go around speaking badly about him. Doesn't mean you can't say something that's true. I mean, like if he's doing something that's wrong, he shouldn't be doing. The prophets are full of people who were sent to kings and said, you know, what you're doing is wicked. You need to stop doing it. God's pronounced judgment on you because you're doing it, whatever. But don't be talking behind his back about other people, about him. Don't even be doing it in what you think is the privacy of your own home, in your bedchamber. Someone could overhear you. First of all, kings tend to have networks, like spy networks, depending on who they are. But some people just want to gain favor of the king, so that they'll or maybe they just don't like you, so they'll alert him to something you said to get you on the guy's bad side, put them on the king's good side. So just don't even say it. It'll get back to him somehow. You might be like, how? You might be thinking, that'll never get back to him. And then one day you're like, how did he even know that? Don't give an opportunity to get back to him. So be careful when you're talking to people in authority, particularly high political authority like a king or the president of the United States, something like that. Again, it doesn't mean you have to agree with everything they said, and don't mean you can't even speak and say, I think your policy's wrong. I think you're making a mistake there. But don't make it a personal attack on the person. You may not like President Trump as a person, but you don't make a personal attack against him. You say why you don't, why he did as president, what policy of his you thought was wrong. And the same for the occupant today, one occupying the White House. I mean, you can only be there by God's thing, and don't be making fun of him doing all this stuff like you see people doing. You need to be respectful to them because no one's in power except God put them there. As Yeshua said to Pilate, no one, you have no authority except that my Father gave you. And it's true about every ruler. So just don't be talking bad about them. Don't be talking bad about them. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything they do, all their policies and everything, but don't be talking bad about them. Now, let's continue on in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 5. Some more ways not to be talking. Whosoever mocks the poor reproaches his maker. He is glad at calamity shall not be unpunished. And calamities, if you don't know, are disasters, okay? If you go around mocking the poor, making fun of them because they're poor, and often poor will have less chance of education, maybe making fun of education, perhaps even the way they, how they talk, whatever. You're approaching the one that made them. You're making fun of his handiwork. And when people usually do this because they're trying to get people's attention away from some inadequacy of their own by deflecting it. By deflecting it. And they're just trying to make sport of someone else. But that poor person is God's handiwork. And you're only making fun of his handiwork because it shows you're despising the one that made him. And likewise, you don't want to be glad at when disaster strikes other people. We're to be motivated. We're to seek love. We're trying to keep people away from disaster. Yeshua didn't come to destroy the wicked, but to save them from the consequence of their wickedness. And we're to be the same way. And we're not to be out there rejoicing over their disasters. Because we do, God will bring disaster on us. We won't go unpunished. And yeah, I see people have done this all the time. Someone they don't like, say President Trump, or let's say some preacher or something. Something bad happens to them, and they're all ready to throw a party. They're all out there rejoicing over it. It's going to come back on you if you do that. Don't do it. Don't be talking that way. And here's some more things you don't want to be doing. And you want to avoid people who are doing them, by the way, as we said earlier. Remember that mouth the wicked. This more of those distinctions tells us what the things that come from the mouth the wicked, which we don't want to be our mouths being. Burning lips and a wicked heart. Oh, this is Proverbs chapter 26, verse 23 through 28. Burning lips and a wicked heart are like a potsherd covered in silver dross. He that dissembles with his lips and lays up deceit within him. Oh, he that hates the symbols of the lips and lays up deceit within him. When he speaks fair, believe him not, for there are 7 abominations in his heart. Whose hatred is covered by deceit, his wickedness shall be showed before the whole congregation. Whosoever digs a pit shall fall therein. He that rolls a stone, it will return upon him. A lying tongue hates those who are afflicted by it, and a flattering mouth works ruin. Always a lot here. And first, let me explain. A potsherd is a piece of broken pottery, if you don't know. And a piece of broken pottery is worthless. Now, silver dross, when you refine silver, the pure silver goes at the top, the bottom part's the dross, and what causes it to sink is some sort of impurity, like maybe some granite or sand. Depends on where, when they mine the silver. Sometimes the silver's all bent in a bunch of rock, and so you're trying to separate the silver from the other things that's all mixed in with it. So, but the potsherd may have a silvery appearance, look like it has some value, but it's just covered with some. It just that's just a thin facade over it. Facade. I mean, it's just a little thin layer of silver to make it look good, but really it's worthless. And that's what burning lips and a wicked heart are like. And you can tell their heart's wicked because their lips are burning. They're saying hurtful words. And these aren't just hurtful words because perhaps someone made them mad and they're saying something they'd later regret. I mean, these are purposefully hurtful. They're doing things, but this is all on purpose, as we're going to see. They've given some thought to this. And what are they doing? They hate someone, so they're going to cause division with their lips. It's a symbol. Break apart, right? Separate friends with their lips. And they're laying up deceit within themselves. Someone that does this because they hate. Now he may speak fair, he may give great speeches, but don't believe him. They're abomination in his heart. And a great example of that, like I've said before, is Adolf Hitler. And what he did, he was a great orator, no doubt about it. He moved people into action with his words, but it was evil. And what he did in his speeches, he started off saying the things that were perhaps even true, or like somewhat true and logical, and he'd move them from that to a realm of emotion. And if people are trying to manipulate someone else, they want to get them out of the realm of logic and reason and into the realm of making this of emotion. And they manipulate those emotions to get them to do what they want. And Hitler was a master of it, but you don't believe him. Some of the stuff he tells you is not anything going to be true to start with. And his motivations are wrong. He's doing it because he hates someone. That hatred is covered by deceit. But in the end, the way everyone's going to see his wickedness is going to come out before everyone. And here in America, we have the same thing going on. Most don't realize Hitler, when he first rose to power, got a lot of Jewish votes. He was like, and the day that Muslim woman from Minnesota was part of that Gang of Four, which later I guess became 6 or 8 or whatever. She won the Jewish vote in her district. Miss Anti-Israel, anti-Semitism. How'd she win it? Flattery, deceit. Well, she'd say things like, "Just because I'm anti-Israel doesn't mean I'm anti-Jewish." And she would commend some Jewish leaders who agreed with her on something about something, but in truth she didn't. She hated them, and that's come out now. She is anti-Jewish. Make no mistake. But mainly they voted for her because they had forsaken God's covenant, and her opponent was, she painted her opponent as he's going to get rid. He's going to end abortion, except he'll work to get rid of abortion, except. And because they love this wickedness so much that instead of that they believe someone who was good at giving speeches and didn't consider the contents of the word or anything else, because they promised that they could keep doing the wickedness they've been doing and celebrate things like gay marriage and stuff, even though they intended to kill. She had been happy for the Jewish people have been wiped off the face of the earth. But now it's coming out, because the truth will always come out, and just like it did with Hitler. And what happened? Hitler dug this pit. At the end, he was destroyed. It's like rolling a big stone uphill All it takes one little slip and that thing rows back on you and kills you, runs you over. It always will. Because the lying tongue hates those that are afflicted by it. And a flattering mouth works ruin. And if you remember, we saw that when we talked about the people who know their God, how Antiochus Epiphanes gotten power and everything through flattery. He wasn't a legitimate ruler. He usurped it through flattery. And he got those who forsake the covenant to join him in persecuting those who were keeping the covenant through flattery. And why they do it brought ruin. It caused all that war in the land of Israel for 7 years. Destroyed towns and everything, brought this ruin inside Israel. And the province Judea and his, from in his day, but Israel today, it brought ruin to his empire. He ended up dying. A whole bunch of people died, and just brought ruin to the temple, and had to get rededicated. It all came from a flattering mouth that worked all this ruin. And we got to be careful. We are not doing these things. That we are speaking the love as our motivation. And if we do not lie, we cannot do these things. Notice how much this relies on lying. The difference between flattery and praise is flattery is based on a lie. You're telling someone something good about somebody, but it ain't true. You don't believe it. You don't mean it. Praise, it's true, and you mean it as well. So we need to look out for people flattering and make sure we're not one of them. And here in Proverbs 29:5-6, we see this: a man that flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. In transgression of an evil man, there is a snare. For the righteous to sing and rejoice. It's a trap, okay? Now, that's why it's so important to listen. We need to listen to other people to determine which group they're in, wise or foolish, as I talked about the foolish and the wise before. We need to try to discern their motives and not from, notice there's nothing in here about body language or any of that sort of thing. We're trying to guess somebody else's internal world from things like that. I mean, there was a wife was showing me an example. This guy was saying these two are, this couple head for divorce because they're sitting near each other. The man was leaning away from his wife. Well, perhaps the guy had a hemorrhoid or something on that side. It was painful to lean towards her. Perhaps that had nothing to do with any of that stuff that man said. He's all speculating about his motivation. In this guy's particular case, he was proven wrong. They didn't divorce at all. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about listening to their words, keeping ourselves in that realm of logic and reason. Not letting them suck us into the realm of emotion when we manipulate it. And comparing what they say to the Word of God. And they're praising us to discern, first of all, we need to ask ourselves the honest question: do I deserve this? And the answer is, if your honest answer is no, they're probably trying to flatter you. It is a trap. Are they sincere? And again, if no, they're trying to flatter you, and it's a trap. It's so important in communication to listen. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Let them talk and pay attention to what they're saying. Determine whether they're looking out for your good or they're trying to bring destruction on you. Then you won't have Jews voting for someone that hates Jews and hates Israel. If you were Jewish, you wouldn't be doing that if you paid attention. Don't let yourself get sucked in the realm of emotion. Now, we continue on Proverbs chapter 17, verse 14. The beginning of strife is when one lets out water. Therefore, leave off contention before it be meddled with. Okay, so this is like Maybe we got this expression, the floodgates have been opened. And what it is, you have a dam, say a hydroelectric dam. Let's say you have one like Hoover Dam or over Beaver Lake over in Arkansas, where there's a road built on top of that dam. You don't want water going over the top of the dam. So you have these gates to the side to let water out. And you have a spillway down below it. Once water starts going down that spillway, everything that's in it's going to get swept away. So when the beginning of strife, that's like when that floodgate just first starts opening. I mean, if you're down there and you see a little bit of water start coming out of that floodgate, you gotta get out of there. You gotta escape in the same way. When you see strifes beginning, no, the floodgates are about to open. So what's the solution? Leave off contention. Don't just stop the discussion before it be meddled with, before the floodgate goes. And if you leave off the contention, often the floodgates will, they may open. Maybe other people involved, but you won't be involved in it. You won't be caught up in it. But maybe they'll just close. But you got to do it before you got to do it before the flood comes, so you don't get swept up, just like someone getting out of the spillway. So when you see strifes beginning, find a way to end the conversation. You got to be careful how you do that, even how to walk away. But what you don't want to do is lie and make something up. And you may need God's help. You may need to just pray, God, help me get out of this, and God will supply you a way out. Now we're looking at another one, Proverbs 20, verse 3. It is honor for a man to see strife, but every fool will be meddling. Okay, remember, we read, don't meddle with it. Don't fool around with this strife. It's going to bring all this contention. If you do that, that's foolish to do. That's what fools do. Now, this is my family, the way I grew up, it was kind of like if someone started an argument and you kind of left, they were like, they won the arguments, what they'd act like. They're like, well, they left because I was right and they couldn't do it. And then, or people think you were cowardly for not continuing on, or somehow dishonorable to not continue on and stand your ground and hold that fight, and say that. But the Bible's telling you the opposite. It's an honor to you. It shows you're wise, because the wise man's going to avoid this. And you're not a fool. So don't let anyone intimidate you with this kind of nonsense into continuing on with strife. When you see the beginning of it, get yourself out of the situation, get yourself away from it as quickly as possible, if possible. There is a time to fight, fight with people and strive with them. So sometimes you have to right a wrong, to end an injustice. But most of the time, people's fights are over stupid things, and ain't nothing like that. And just get yourself out of it as quickly as possible, and be wise about how you get out of it. And certainly do not lie to get out of it. Again, always tell the truth about all things to all people at all times. Proverbs chapter 30, verse 32 through 33, we read this. If you have done foolishly in lifting yourself up, or if you have thought evil, lay your hand upon your mouth. Surely the churning of milk brings forth butter, and the wringing of the nose brings forth blood. So forcing of wrath brings forth strife. Again, chapter 30, verse 32 through 33 of Proverbs. So, if you punch someone in the nose, it's going to bleed. We used to make our own butter. We put the cream in the jar and we just shake it with our hands. You didn't have to have refrigeration or nothing, and it would turn into butter, or those little butter churns. Well, forcing of wrath means, you know, you just continue on. I mean, you continue on, and you're angry, and you say things to make the other guy angry. It's just going to create strife. And maybe it's because you were bragging when you shouldn't have been, foolishly lifting yourself up. I mean, it may even be true. But what's the point of doing that if it's just going to cause strife between you and other people? Or maybe you thought of something, maybe you thought of something to say but you shouldn't say it. It's just going to cause strife. It's just going to make someone mad and lead to strife if you do. Either way, you need to lay your hand on your mouth. I mean, some other people literally do that. They say something they shouldn't have said, and they cover their hand with their mouth. If you see someone do that, be gracious to them. I have certainly said things I regretted immediately after saying them. Most people have. And if you're the one, and when you're the one that done that, you just want the other person to forget it and move on and not make a deal of it, because you realize you screwed up. You need to be gracious to the other person. If they realize they screwed up and by laying their hand on their mouth, just move on. Let it go. There's no reason to say something about, no reason to make them to force wrath about it. They may have made you mad, but don't be responding in anger to them. Give yourself 30 seconds, 15 to 30 seconds to cool down. And avoid bringing forth and not bring forth strife. And again, even put a hand in your mouth. If you thought something you should say that you shouldn't, if you necessary, just put your hand over your mouth. You let that thought pass and don't give voice to it. Remember, a fool says everything that comes to his mind. Because we all have thoughts that really don't need voicing. Now, in Proverbs 25, 11 through 13, we begin our last section. And it kind of summarizes this whole ideal we have here about communicating wisely. A word fitly spoken is like apple. Yes, Proverbs chapter 25, I should say, verse 11 through 13. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold and pitchers of silver. As a gold earring, an ornament of gold, is a wise reprover upon an obedient ear. As the snow in the time of harvest, so is a faithful messenger to them that send him, for refresh the soul of his masters. So, notice the word fitly spoken. What's the word fitly spoken? A word fitly spoken is the right word said in the right way. The right words said the right message, the right time, said in the right way to the right people. All those things I'm talking about. And like apples of gold and pictures of silver, it's beautiful when this happens. Notice, to an obedient ear, one that's obedient to God in his ways. A wise reprover to them is valuable, like an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold. They're going to value the input of that wise reprover because they want to do what's right, and they may just needed some instruction, like we talked about earlier. They'll understand the knowledge. They just might need a little correction. Or maybe they knew that they knew not to go, but they realized they've started down the wrong path, and they'll appreciate you putting them back on the right path. or or they appreciate that you're because they have an obedient ear. They want to hear God's instruction, not a mocker, not a scorner, but someone who wants to do what's right. If you're wise, and wise, of course, means about saying it, doing those things we talked about, the right words, the right time, in the right setting, said in the right way. They're going to appreciate it. And so also will those that send a messenger who's faithful to them and tells them the truth about the matter. I mean, the masters, sometimes people in business say they need to make a decision, do this or do that. And they're in turmoil but there's some piece of information they need to know. They need to know how something else turned out. And they need accurate information so they can make the right decision. And they were just kind of, they're kind of like someone out there working in the heat. People even say that they're sweating it. I was really sweating it there or whatever. But like if you're out there in a harvest and it's hot and cold and cold moves in, it refreshes you, cooled you down. And that's what a faithful messenger is. A faithful messenger is someone they can rely on that tells them the truth. Again, always tell the truth to all people at all times about all things. And that's what Joseph was to his father. Now, we want to always make everyone else happy with you. That's how Joseph ended up in the pit. And when we cover the patriarchs in the future series, we'll go into this more. But as far as in the sea, check out how his brothers were taking care of the flocks, and they brought back an evil report because they weren't doing their job. And he told his father, and he was faithful. But now his father probably suspected it, but now he knows, and he can correct the situation. So again, we want to be faithful to be saying what's true at all times. Proverbs 27, verses 1 through 12, verse 1 and 2, we see this. Boast not to yourself of tomorrow, for you know not what the day may bring forth. Let another man praise you, not your own mouth, a stranger, and not your own lips. Okay, don't be out there self-promoting. And particularly, don't brag about something you haven't even done yet. Don't be telling people about how, I don't know, let's say you're on a football team. Let's say you're going to the Super Bowl. Game hasn't even started, and you're bragging, and you're the quarterback, and you're bragging about how your team's going to win, and how and how you're and how you're going to outplay the real. And you don't know. Maybe your key receiver gets injured early in the game, and your team loses, and you're going to be so embarrassed. Not because you lost, because you bragged. So David told one guy, don't brag about till you've done it. But even then, don't brag. Don't brag. Let someone else brag on you. Let other people talk about my example, what a great quarterback you are after you've won the game. You don't need to tell everyone in my example you're a great quarterback. They'll know it after the game. If it's true, they'll know it. You don't have to tell them. And let them do it. Let other people do it. And that this first one about, remember what James says. Don't say you don't have control over tomorrow. Don't say I'm gonna go tomorrow and go in business and gain blah blah blah, and so on and so forth. But you gotta say, Lord willing, I'm gonna do such and such. Because things outside your control can always happen. You could be on your way to the greatest business deal of your life, get hit by a total another car driven by a total stranger hit your car, put you in the hospital, and the whole business deal fall apart. Or you can be like I was once, where I was accepted for a job, and they were going to pay all my expenses and move me to another city and everything. Now, I wasn't bragging, but I did tell people I knew goodbye. I was on Friday. And Monday, I was supposed to he's supposed to call me and give me my plane tickets and everything. Call never came. Tried to email him. Email bounced back saying a non-valid email. Well, turns out it was a government contract. Turned out they lost their contract. That was beyond my control. But why have I bragged to everyone about that? Boy, I've been ashamed, huh? And this is, I guess, one reason why I hate writing resumes and stuff. I hate people want me to brag them, tell them about my great accomplishments. I'd rather someone else do it. I really would. Because it's like Yeshua. It's like because you get yourself in a situation like Yeshua said. He said, "Don't go up to a if you're invited to this big banquet, don't go and sit at the don't go sit at the table, don't go sit at the place of honor. Go sit down among the common people. And if they want you there, they'll bring you up, and everyone will know that you're being honored by being put in the place of honor. But if you put yourself in the place of honor and you aren't supposed to be there, everyone's going to know that you're not at the place of honor, and that you were put down, literally, in their case, because there was an upper chamber and a lower chamber. And the upper chamber was the place of honor. That you were brought down. So let other people lift you up. Don't lift yourself up, just be brought down. Keep yourself low and humble and let them do the lifting. And lastly, we see this in Proverbs 30, chapter 10. Proverbs chapter 30, verse 10. Accuse not a servant of his master, lest he curse you and you be found guilty. Okay. Why does it say be found guilty? Talking about falsely accusing a servant of his master, not accusing him of some wickedness, like Esther, who we'll look at when we talk about Purim. I guess in a couple months, in a month and a half or so from now, in about 6 weeks from now, we talk about Purim. We'll talk about this perhaps. But Esther, remember, she accused Haman of doing those things, and they were all true, and the king knew it. But don't be falsely accusing is the ideal here. That's why he's going to. Now, if you accuse him, he's going to curse you. So you don't want to do this casually, and you don't want to be over nothing. If you do it, you need proof. You need a couple of other witnesses, or something else is just indisputable proof. Or you're going to be found guilty. And the master, and if you're accusing your fellow employee, and say you both have the same boss, or even if you don't, maybe it's someone else, but their boss and your boss is the same boss, whatever. And it's false. It's going to be found out. You're going to get caught eventually. Like I tell people, I've said to many people, prisons are full of people who had plans where they were foolproof plans, and they weren't going to get caught. You are going to get caught. It will come back on you. You will be found guilty. So don't accuse anyone falsely. And depends on what it is and the person. If it's your brother, we're told in Matthew 18, chapter 18, starting in verse 15. If it's your brother, you're to go to him alone. And as we talked about before, if he repents, that's it. You don't talk about anyone else. But if it's someone like Haman, you got to discern: are they the wicked? Are they the wise? Are they foolish? Are they wise or foolish? Righteous or wicked? All this stuff we've been talking about, listening, and discern that comes from listening. You may have to go directly to their master. You can't go to them at all. That is for your brother that you're to do that. For the wicked, like Haman, if Esther had told Haman first, he would have done something to do her in. And she was wise, got the king in a good mood, and then got his favor, and then at the right time, in the right place, in the right way, she told him. And she wasn't found guilty because everything she said was true, and the king knew it. So, so communicate wisely. Remember, the mouth of it's not just having the right words, the mouth of wisdom, but communicating those words wisely. And as our end goal is salvation of other people, to bring them into the kingdom. So I have for this week. Until next week, shalom.